Teacher asked students to draw the future. Put it in a time capsule. 50 years from now, there will be a group of children of the same age. Open it up. A girl is writing desperately on a piece of paper. Very fast. Unfortunately, all she wrote were numbers. No one could read them until the teacher took the paper away. She hadn't finished writing. The capsule was buried in the ground. The girl disappeared. The teacher found her in the utility room. She was still writing. She had worn out 10 fingers. She finally finished it. 50 years later, the capsule was dug out. A boy gets the envelope. He was dumbfounded. In his mind, it's just a few lines of numbers. The boy takes the paper home. His father is a college professor, but he still didn't understand it until he accidentally soiled the paper. Only then did he become curious about the paper. He copied down a series of random numbers. After a few combinations, he looked it up online. It turned out to be the 9/11 incident. It turns out that these numbers were the date and the number of deaths. There was another series of numbers at the end. He didn't know what they stood for. He panicked, copied down all the numbers, starting with the first line. Every time he found one, he drew a mark. His speed got faster and faster. He tried to prove that it was just a coincidence. He failed, except for the last 3 numbers. The disaster hadn't happened yet. Surprisingly, none of them were correct. When he saw the number at the end, he finally stopped. It reads 20081019, followed by a large series of numbers. According to the previous deduction, this series of numbers is the number of deaths, and this time, the number of people is the total world population. He was crazy. The glass fell from his hand. He told his colleagues. The colleague didn't believe him at all. He says there's an accident tomorrow. 81 people will die. The colleague still didn't believe him. He even had a big fight with him. He found the class teacher of the girl. He wanted to know the girl's address because she was the only one who knew the truth about everything, only to learn that she was dead. Oh my God, hopes dashed. The next day arrived. From the early hours of the morning, he was glued to the TV. He wanted to be the first to know if there would be a disaster, but until dawn, there was nothing. On the way to pick up his son from school, the road was particularly crowded. He suddenly saw the car navigation. It said latitude and longitude. He suddenly realized that there were no deciphered numbers. Could be the coordinates and the predicted disaster. It happened on this very same congested highway. He stepped out of the car to find out what had happened, and sure enough, a truck overturned, but no one was killed. No. Not this one. But just then, the person in front of him suddenly panicked and fled. He jerked back. A plane came with a piercing sound. Then it crashed and exploded. It finally happened. He desperately ran towards the wreckage of the plane. Save one if you can. Maybe if one less person died, the last prophecy would not have happened. But the plane continued to explode. The flames from the gasoline leak. It's hard to breathe. In the midst of such a disaster, nothing can be done. Reports of the crash showed the death toll was 81, exactly as predicted. Was God playing a joke? He decided to stop the prophecy from happening. He went to the home of the girl who had been foretold. Maybe he could find her family here. And sure enough, he found her daughter. Followed her all the way to the museum. Goes up to the Shan. Apparently, he couldn't talk to the girl. He talked about the next disaster her mother had predicted. The woman was disgusted. As if she was afraid, she left without looking back. The disaster is imminent. He calls the police. He tells the police the truth. Otherwise, many people would die, and he had to use a public phone. Otherwise, the police might come to him. Of course, the police did not believe him. He had no choice but to go ahead. He arrived at the coordinates. This is a subway station. There are a lot of people. He tries to find someone suspicious, and it's not him. Who could it be? Yes, it's him. He desperately chased after this man because he ran too fast. He caught the attention of the police. They finally caught him. Oh, no, wrong arrest. The train is moving, but not even a few meters out. In the tunnel, a train is coming at him. He jumped on the woman and child beside him. He had to save them even if he had to die. But the people on the platform didn't even have time to run. They were caught in the middle of the disaster. It's over. This time there are 10 hands cannot save. It's good to be alive. It's finally over. He survived, and he saved the woman and the child. But outside the train, there was silence. He had failed again. Back home in a cold shower, he needed to wake up. Just one last disaster left. It seemed he would die sooner or later. He took his son to the woman's house again. The woman was already waiting for him. She is no longer running away. Because of this disaster, everyone will die. Instead of waiting alone to die, I'd rather fight to stay alive. They went to the house where her mother had lived. No one had been here for a long time. It smells of decay. They try to find clues to the disaster in the room. There might be a way to escape. Finally, they found a painting. It was painted by her mother. It shows a sun, a human kneeling on the flames. Could this disaster be related to the sun?